We're out here at Millerdale Colony in Miller, South Dakota. It's about August 13th, 2014. And what we're looking at here is their big lagoon in the background. And that's about, Dennis, what, about a 15, 16 million gallon lagoon?
15 million, yeah.
Yeah, and we've been out here working with this for what, about 4 years?
4 years, yeah.
And when we started, what was the condition of the lagoon at that point, and why did they ask us to help them?
They had tried other companies, and they had a lot of solids on the bottom. They had some film and things like that on top, some crusting on top. And so they were wanting to get rid of those solids, reduce salts, and get things active again.
It was also an odor problem around the colony, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we came in here, and what happened was, over that 2-year period of time, we pretty much brought everything up from the bottom. And what happens in these lagoons that have a lot of bottom solids or sludge is the microbes gradually work down, they create air pockets, and then the buoyancy brings it to the top where there's oxygen, and it just kind of boils. And we'll be able to see some of that here today. And what happens then, once it gets up in the oxygen, it kind of breaks it down and liquefies it. And the main thing we want to do with these lagoons is we want to get that off the bottom, because that's putrefied manure. It's anaerobic. We got a lot of aldehydes, formaldehydes, high salt, pathogens, and that's stuff that we don't want to put out on our soil because it's not good for soil health. And the whole idea of working with manure in lagoons like this or pits is to get it pre-digested so that we can really get it all broken down microbially before we ever put it in the field. And the benefit then is not only the additional nutrients we hold, dropping salt levels, but it's also the fact that we have less pathogens in there, and we have a lot of microbes, and that's what really benefits soil health. And we normally see a 5 to 15% increase in yield agronomically in the field with the continuous program over a 3 to 5 year period of time. So as you can see here, this here lagoon is pretty, no solids really on top. We're seeing some boiling out here, and the odor here is almost non-existent where we're standing right now. And so this is fed by 4 finishing barns and a sow unit. So there's a lot of raw manure that's going in here. And when they get the pull the plug on the finishing barns, then it comes down here and into the lagoon. And at that point, we'll see some solids on top. Then over the next month, they'll tend to be dissipated. Now, one of the things, Dennis, that we've done here that I think has really helped is we start actually treating in the barn also before it gets in the pit. And
yep.
That's a good idea, isn't it?
Definitely. We've got the 8-foot pits up there on the finisher barns, and they've been able to pump all the way down to the bottom, and they've never been able to do that ever since they've had them. So as we started treating there, we're making a big difference in the barns too. And we're reducing odors, which is going to help the overall hog health, yeah, for sure. So
and they maintain pit capacity up there
definitely,
too. And that's a big part of it. And so, you know, this whole process, and Dennis, what we're using here is Microbial Manure Master.
Yeah.
It's our key product that we use. It's a liquid. It's got 17 live microbes in it. Several of those microbes are very aggressive on reducing organic matter, lignins, and fiber type material. We also use it a lot in dairy and beef confinement pits with very good results. And so we've had really good luck with this. We're treating millions of acres around, millions of gallons, excuse me, around the Midwest. And as you can see in the background here, it works very well as long as you continue with a treatment schedule. And of course, we're getting, in August now, we're coming close to pump out this fall. So again, we're able to gauge the condition of the pit after pump out, you know, how many solids we got left. Right. Hopefully we're cleaned up here now. Yep. And so it gives us a good indication of what's happening down on the bottom in fall pump out.
Yeah.
And then after fall pump out, it's important then to go back and retreat. What we're looking at in the background here are actually the finishing barns that feed into the main lagoon that we talked about here briefly. But also in the back of us, we have 2 5 million gallon lagoons where we actually are making what we call NPF, natural plant food, which is really bio-augmented swine manure. Now, Dennis, these were put in, what, about 3 years ago?
It's been more like 5 years ago.
Really, that long ago?
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about what we do with this type of product. that we're producing here?
What we do is we'll set aside manure in these two lagoons, and you don't pump any raw manure into those, and then we treat them separately. That way we can lower the EC, and the EC is electrical conductivity, or the amount of salt in the manure. And you want that level to be 6 or less to have a good response. And we can use it in our starter as a starter fertilizer. We can use it in as a carrier for Roundup or for whatever chemical you're spraying. You can use it to help break residue down in the fall. There's a lot of different areas, ways you can use it.
And the benefit of it is there's no solids, no liquid, no odor, and it has a lot of microbes in it, doesn't it?
Right.
And that's really the benefit.
Yeah.
And what it does, it helps with soil health, and it helps with plant health when we put it over the top. So Dennis, one of the ways we can check the quality of the manure, either out of a general lagoon or in this case where we're making the natural plant food, is using the EC meter, which measures salt levels, right?
Right.
And we want to get the electroconductivity down somewhere below 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then we know it's safe to use as a starter at 10 to 20 gallons an acre, or as a foliar at 20 gallons an acre as a carrier. So if I put a little bit of this on there, we can actually measure the EC of this. You can just dip this right into the lagoon or pit and measure the salt level on manure. In this particular case, it's running what?
It's around 6.
Okay, and so that would be ideal, wouldn't it?
Right.
And so now we can use that. It goes through sprayers, or I said it doesn't plug screens. It's really a wonderful product.
Mm-hmm.
And in many cases, you can reduce some of your commercial fertilizer purchases, can't you?
Yes, you can.
Now, raw manure generally has an EC of, over 30.
Yeah.
And so in most of our lagoons that we're working with, where we're not isolating it, we'd like to get it down in that, below 20, 15 area.
Right.
And then we know it's a lot better when we put it in the field as far as soil health, don't we?
Absolutely. You have less salt out there when you're putting raw manure out there with less salt. That makes a big difference. Your microbes won't have to break that salt down.
Okay. We're using Microbial Manure Master here, and it's worked very well. And tell us a little bit, what is Microbial Manure Master?
Well, there's a blend of 17 different microbes in it, including purple sulfur microbes, and they're specialized to break up cellulose and to basically flood that lagoon with microbes so that we can bring in oxygen-rich microbes to the top and bring up those solids from the bottom.
Yeah, and you actually see it gurgitating, don't you?
Yep, you do.
And what happens is those microbes gradually move down. They get in that putrefied manure that's on the bottom, the solids, the biomass. They create little air pockets, and this buoyancy brings it right to the top, and it's just like a fish boil, isn't it?
Right.
And it just cleans it, over time, it just cleans that whole bottom up. I mean, I've been in lagoons where we had 6 to 8 feet of solids, and over a 2-year period of time, we just clean that up off the bottom. And people are amazed that you don't need to go in there with some kind of a backhoe or something and get all that out of there. The microbes can do it.
Right. And the farm boss, Robert, he commented last year, it looks like I have alligators because they come, these big piles, the big chunks of manure come up to the top, and it looks like an alligator moving through the water.
And we're actually out here today, and really, I don't smell anything right here, do you?
No,
at all?
No.
So, I mean, it's enjoyable to be on the colony where you're living right next to something like this here. You can see the 4 finishing barns in the back that dump into this lagoon, and we've got the sow units over here that dump in here. So, again, one of the benefits of dealing with this kind of manure is, number one, when you go to haul it out, you got less agitation time, less diesel fuel, it's easier to extract. If you're going to haul it in semis, which a lot of people are doing nowadays, it's easier to put in the semi, get out of the semi. And agronomically, generally we see about a 5 to 15% increase in yield because of improved soil health. We talked about that earlier, if you keep doing it over a 3 to 5 year period of time.
And they use a drag hose, so it's going to be easier to pump through the drag hose,
right.
Too.
So it just makes the manure a lot easier to work with, and we can get rid of that putrefaction, which is really hard on soil health.
Definitely, definitely. Get rid of the salts and reduce that putrefaction.
So, I mean, they're going to continue working with us on this, and because of the results that we're getting here, and we've got millions of gallons of manure under contract, or where we're providing the material for people to self-treat all over the Midwest.
Yep.
So this is an excellent niche for us as a company, and we really stand behind our product. We have 100% performance guarantee. This is actually a separator building.
It is.
And when we started working with them, they were actually separating the manure, hauling solids out, and then trying to deal with the liquid in the lagoon because they were having trouble dealing with all the solids and just capacity in the pit. And it was just blocking everything up. And since we started working with them, we told them you really don't need to use that because the microbes will break all that down. And so they haven't been using the separator for over 4 years now, have they?
No, they haven't.
And so you really don't need to separate the manure if you have a good microbial culture that you can put in the pit, like what we have in Microbial Manure Master. And it's really key. The microbes will break down all these solids, even the lignits in the fibers and organic matter, and liquefy all of it if you let them work long enough in that manure. And you know, we have a lot of dairies today that do use separators because they take that separated solid material back in as bedding, and under those kind of conditions it works good. But if you're just separating to take the solids out of the manure because you can't deal with them, really the best way to do it is just use microbes. One of the things that Robert, the farm manager, did was build a tank farm. And what he does, he brings the natural plant food, the bio-augmented hog manure, over here, and then totes are brought to him. You know, maybe Molly, it may be Starter Plus, or it may be you know, the Cattle Water Ag, or it may be a micronutrient package, and then he can actually blend his own starter and foliars, right?
Right, exactly.
And so it makes a convenient way to use the natural plant food that has a lot of microbes in it that are very beneficial to soil health and also to the plant when you put it on foliar. Use that as a carrier, and then you can induct other components to it to build different formulations. So it works out really good. And it actually helps on overall commercial fertilizer costs, doesn't it?
It does, it does. When you get the microbes going, you can definitely reduce your fertilizer costs.
So it's kind of a neat thing that Robert has done here, and a good way to handle making different formulations for different purposes, whether it be starter or foliar, or as just a carrier.